Freestyle Scary 3. This I wish I had a name this Freestyle Shady because I have a lot of stories that aren't so much scary as they are shady. People through my whole life have always said that I'm like a shady character, that I look like a shady character. And I guess I have been, and I always was. At my heart, I'm a good guy. I grew up as a really good kid. There were situations that happened that led me into a life of crime. It was all around me, and I was a smart kid, um, able to know when there was danger and get out. I was also good with people. People like me. So I got into a lot of situations where bad people would take advantage of me and use my skill set as being a good person, but was at the same time being willing to do certain things that were beneficial to the bad people that I was hanging around with, and to myself financially, let's say. And I always was an insecure kid. I always wanted people's respect. I wanted to be liked, not just by regular people, but by bad people. And I got into a lot of really bad situations as a result. I started selling drugs, I think, when I was 14 years old. And it didn't start off well. I had a crew of guys that I hung out with, just kids. But, we'd hang out in this park, and there was not a lot to do. But I had connections with older guys that I knew, and I started off selling hash. Actually, I started off selling Fimo, which is, I think that's how it's pronounced. It's a little, it looks like hash. It's a substance that used to start fires in a fireplace. We would take the Fimo and we would wrap it in a thin layer of hash, and I would sell it to people and rip them off. I would also sell hash oil joints, which would have some hash in them, but then we would paint the outside of it with green marker to make it look like it was stained with hash oil. So I started off my drug dealing career ripping off other kids, and kids don't know any different. They can smoke tobacco, you tell them it's weed, and they're going to act like they're fucked up. So I was taking advantage of that for the older guys that I knew. I was doing that in school. There were so many situations, and maybe I'll get into them someday, but for now, I'll tell you that there was a lot of retribution for people maybe trying to rip me off because I was such a young kid. These older guys would come in and fuck people up, and I was known as someone not to fuck with eventually when it came to selling drugs and attempting to rip me off. I was in a situation where I was in a vehicle one time on my own, thinking I could handle myself, and I got robbed at gunpoint, beat up, and kicked out of a truck on the side of a road. They got theirs later on, beaten up with baseball bats. Anyways, on school grounds, my older friends came and beat this one particular guy up with a baseball bat. But I was I was a drug dealer from an early age. Not seriously, but like that's what I did to get extra money. But by the age of 23, when I graduated, when I got I was addicted to crack in my early 20s. With my dad. My dad was into it. A ton of stories there. Maybe I'll get into sometime. But I went to school for human services counselor. Thought because I knew people and because I've been through some shit that I can help people with their shit. And when I got out of school, I realized the money wasn't so great and it was a grind. And I got back into drug dealing. So, from the age of 23 to the age of, say, 38, I'm 40. I was a drug dealer until this podcast came around, really. And I had kids, and I needed to get away from it. And they legalized marijuana. Marijuana is the thing that I sold for the most part. It's very easy to get. You can grow it yourself in a field. People will buy it for $10 a gram. Friggin' gold rush until they legalized it here. I always made sure I dealt with people that I knew, so I didn't get busted. I came close. I was pulled over multiple times before I quit by the police, who would make up excuses as to why they were pulling me over and search my car, but I never kept large amounts on me, so I was fine that way. But anyways, the story is called Off the Hook, and it begins when I was 23. I met a young man, I guess he was 28, I was 23. And his name was Johnny Appleseed. He was from Ireland, and we didn't know why he was here. He was here illegally in Canada. Didn't talk about it much. I suspected he had raped a girl, and he was running away from it. He was here to see about a girl who he apparently knocked up. She was on a school trip to Ireland. I spoke about this in the Speck episode. It was the Richard Speck episodes that I did. I speak about that. And I want to talk a little bit more about it. So Johnny would get me pills. Ecstasy was big. And I had my connections with marijuana. I was selling weed, but I started selling ecstasy. And our goal, we weren't too greedy. We wanted a couple $1,000s a month. Some months were better than others, but for the most part, I was always pretty savvy. Like when it came not to selling drugs so much, but to not getting caught. I knew how to not get caught. That my nickname was Ghost when I was a kid, because if I even sensed anything was wrong about a situation, I would disappear. Where is he? Gone. And I had all this stuff. I'd be gone. I'd be running before the police car halted behind like a school with a bunch of portables behind it where we would sell drugs and stuff. They called me Ghost. Also, when I smoke weed, which I don't like to do, or at least back then I didn't like to do until they figured it out with the legalization of marijuana. Now you can kind of pick and choose what works for you. I would turn white as a ghost when I smoke weed. They call me Aqua Lung as well, and I try to show off and like Method Man, the Iron Lung, taking supers. Well, that's when you take the joint, you spin it around your mouth and you blow it into someone else's mouth. I would take them like until the other person would give up because it would start burning their tongue, just trying to show off. Again, I was an insecure kid. But I would turn green quite often, lending to the nickname Ghost. Johnny and I, we started selling these pills, and I was selling weed, and we got ripped off. We got ripped off by this kid. I knew him from a younger age. I actually hit him with a book. It was a book on witchcraft that a woman that I worked with at a nursing home when I was 15 had given me. And she told me to take good care of this book. I hit him over the head with the book, and I cracked the book like kind of in half. Like I fucked up the cover on it, and she was really upset with me. But I knew Shane. Shane ripped us off. He's dead now. Not because of us or anything. He was a drug addict. And Shane hooked up with me, tried to get some pills, tried to get some weed. We fronted him. I thought he might be a good dealer, just getting rid of a bunch for us. So I fronted like $500 worth of pills, and he was supposed to sell them. We gave him a deal. He was supposed to come back and give us the money. And the first time I did it, he disappeared. My birthday's October 27th, 1980. And around Halloween, I think it was Halloween, Johnny, who lived downstairs from the apartment I lived in, I lived with my brother and a bunch of other guys in an apartment above where he lived. That's how we met. We actually met at a train station, but again, I explained that in Spec. He lived downstairs with a guy named Frank. Frank, his nickname was the Elephant Man. He had goiters all over him. He was kind of a miscreant, like a misfit. He had issues. The whole town had issues. This town that I lived in, Whitby, Ontario, was home to an insane asylum, and they would let the people out into the streets. So I grew up around a lot of people muttering to themselves, dressed up like bunny rabbits, walking around, fucking dudes in suits. They're all torn up like cemetery suits. A lot of my inspiration for dark topics and in my writing comes from my experiences when I was a kid in Whitby, Ontario. We lived downtown, and Johnny and I are selling all this weed and pills out of the apartments. Johnny was a very intimidating character, nuts, legitimately nuts. When you talk about a guy who, he's a tough guy, he's, watch out for that guy, Johnny's that guy. And the reason why you got to believe he's that guy is because he shows you every fucking moment you're around him. He'd just snap. Somebody look at me funny, boom, punch him in the side of the face. Dude, the guy was just, he was just clearing his throat. He was nutty like that. But he was good to have around because, for the most, we would never get ripped off. This guy, Shane, rips us off. Halloween, Johnny comes up. I got a present for you for your birthday, a belated birthday present. I go downstairs to the apartment. Frankie, the elephant man, his goiter's all pussing and shit. He's old, chain smoking cigarettes, little guy. We come into the apartment and Frankie's freaking out. He's like, "What the fuck, Johnny? What the fuck are we doing?" "Oh, shut the fuck up, Frank." Takes me into into their kitchen, and there's Shane sitting in a chair, duct taped to shit. Duct taped like crazy to this chair. And he's got burn marks on him. Johnny had been lighting a spoon up on the burner. He'd been heating it up and burning him with spoons. He'd already been fucking with him. He's torturing this kid. He's like 17 years old. I don't like Shane at this point. Like I didn't like Shane already, and I gave him a chance, and he fucked it up. And I'm a little drunk and a little nutty myself at the time, and I'm into it. I'm into it. Johnny lights a coat hanger up and sticks it in his mouth, fish hooks him, and yanks on it. And it leaves a scar on the kid's face that he probably had till his death. I don't like it anymore. That's enough. That's good. Let him go. Untie him. Fucking everything else. Yeah, happy birthday. Shane, you say fucking anything about this to anybody, this guy, he'll kill you, man. He'll kill you. Just keep your mouth shut. For once in your life, do something right. And he does. He never says shit. But it affected me. It was hard to see somebody go through that kind of pain. It was hard to watch somebody be tortured. And I talk about torture in this Dark Topic episode I'm about to record for full Dark Topic at Tier 13. I'm sorry, it's just at Tier 13. I know this is happening at 5. That's just the way the Dark Topic has evolved, and you'll get it once a month. There's an episode coming out in a couple of weeks from Tier 13. About torture is the next one coming on 13, though. Exclusively later on today. Lets him go. We let him go. Doesn't say shit. I get in a fight upstairs a couple of weeks later. I'm selling cocaine, which is something I never should be doing. I'm addicted to cocaine. I'm a cocaine addict. I haven't done cocaine for a couple of years now. But I love it. If you came to me, say there was a meetup or something, and you had a bag of coke, and like, "Hey, Jack, do you want to go in the washroom?" "Yeah." I'd say, "Yeah," right away. I just try to stay away from it, and that's how I'm able to stay off of it. But I'm a cocaine. I love it. It's bad. It's bad for me. I got to watch my heart as I get in my 40s and stuff, so I'm off it. Anyways, I'm selling coke. And this guy tries to grab the whole pile that's on the table and run. My friends get up, they grab him. He actually starts to go down the stairs. They drag him back up the stairs. There's a fire escape out back. They drag him back up the stairs, and I beat the shit out of him. I smash a bottle over his head. I was not a good guy. He comes back later on in the night with some friends, and they break all of our windows. We get kicked out. I go and I live in this apartment building. The same apartment building, Shane, again, had ripped me off when I was about 18 years old for selling weed to Shane. And a friend of mine, his name was Buzz, we went up and he knew what apartment he was in because he'd seen him earlier in the day, and he dragged him out. We got him in the elevator and beat the shit out of him. Again, just chaos. Just there's so many stories. But Shane and I had a past. And he was I reminded me a lot of myself. He had a lot of history, like a lot of bad things going on in his life. He was kind of a lost kid. And I'd given him multiple opportunities to turn it around, multiple chances. I tried to make him a little underling drug dealer there, and he ripped me off right away. But what happened to him stuck with me. With the hook in the mouth and the yanking and the scarring and the fucking spoon burns on him and what Johnny had done to him. I realized I wasn't really built for that life, if that's the way it was headed. Anyways, we get kicked out. We go and we live in this apartment building where I previously beat Shane up in an elevator with Buzz. Buzz beat the fucking shit out of him. I don't know why he came back and did it to us again, but he did. Some people never learn. And living in this apartment building on the 18th floor, and I get word from the guy next door that Johnny's been arrested. So Johnny stayed in that apartment, and what had happened was he was continuing to sell coke, And a girl had come up around 3 a.m. She was actually in her 40s. Johnny's still, pushing 30. And she comes in, they do some blow together, and she goes to leave without sucking his dick or whatever he thought she should be doing for him sharing his blow with her, blowing him for his blow. And as she's going to leave, Johnny always had a knife, a Rambo-style knife, and he grabbed her by the back of the hair, and he slit her throat. He was nuts. I remember he was staying with us for a little bit. I woke up one day smelling smoke and hearing a bunch of banging, and the TV was fully engulfed in flames. Johnny had lit it on fire for some fucking reason and was putting it out with his hands. Nuts. So, snorting caffeine pills off I talk about in the Spec episode. So, what he done? Slit this girl's throat and then pushed her out the door and immediately regretted what he had done. Johnny, again, as I have said before, was a bad guy with a good spirit underneath. He was a solid guy, but way down below in the roots of Johnny Appleseed, it was rotten. His childhood was horrendous. Beaten, sexually molested, kicked out of his house, street kid. Somehow got over to Canada and was hanging out with me. Takes off his shirt. The girl's throat is slit, gurgling. 50 plus stitches is going to need. He takes off his shirt and he wraps it fucking around her neck. And he's pushing her down the streets 3 a.m. He's pushing her through Whitby. Downtown, it's been street sweep by the cops. It was a little bit of a nutty area. And he's holding this girl like by his shirt to stop the bleeding. And he's pushing her ahead. He's walking down the fucking street with a girl bleeding all over the place and choking her with his fucking shirt, shirtless himself, all the way to a taxi stand where he demands them to call an ambulance. He stays with her until the ambulance comes. He's arrested and goes to jail. He was in jail for 8 years. When he got out, he was trying to get a hold of me on Facebook. It's part of the reason, there's a lot of reasons why I came to where I am right now. I live in Manitoba. I was in Ontario, 3 days away drive. I was trying to get away from everything. But one of the reasons is to, clear myself of this whole insane situation that I was kind of a part of. And the fallout from it and all that. Trying to get a hold of me. I haven't spoken to him since, and now I think it's all cooled down and he's gone. I don't know where he is. Hopefully he went back home. I'm selling weed out here when I get here. And I get ripped off twice right away. And I hold back from doing anything about it because I don't want to revisit that past. I don't want to become like a Johnny. I don't want to become a guy like that. I just let people off. I got ripped off for like $1,500. Let it go. Still friends with the guy. He paid me back in little ways or whatever, but still friends with the guy. And that's why I'm calling this off the hook. The story's off the hook. The reason why I let people off the hook is because of that one particular experience. I didn't want to become that. I realized I didn't have it in me to become like a really rough style drug dealer. I gave it all up a couple of years ago now, and I'm just doing this podcast full time. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I thought it would be an interesting story to tell here. And I'd prefer it be called Jacqueline is Shady or something like that, because I am. People have noticed that, and I am. I'm trying not to be, and this is me coming out of the shade a little bit and just sharing some of the stories. And a reason why, if anybody who has ripped me off in the past is watching, because a lot of people that I know do watch this kind of stuff, I'm so lenient to people who feel that they need to, or they can't pay somebody back for being fronted or whatever else. The reason why I've let people off the hook is because I saw somebody on one, and I didn't like it much. And I know where it all goes. And it's not for me. It's not. Dark topic later on today at tier 13. I'll continue with these at the $5 level just for everybody on Patreon. But if you're missing Dark Topic, it is at tier 13, and it'll be coming out once a month. Publicly drawn from the full DT. Eyes cocked, doors locked, stay paranoid, judge me. It's okay. But I've moved on. I have.